And suddenly we end up with a New Testamently God that's very different from the Old Testamently God. I call that idolatry. Because there's only one God. And if the God you are worshiping is the God you believe in, is different from the Old Testament, you have broken God's command and you have created your own God. And that is idolatry. And I want to start here in Exodus 20, when Moses came down with the commandment. He said, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. And you shall have no other gods before me. God, he starts here and say, I am God, the Lord your God. And then he said, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. So God brought his people out of the land of Egypt. That God who killed the firstborn in Egypt, that God who came with the flies, who came with water to blood, who came with the curses over the people of Egypt, this is the God we worship. And God, he defines who he is. He said, I am that God who brought you out of Egypt. Therefore, if you today believe in a God that's different than what we read in the Old Testament, that is idolatry.
After turning over one stone after another, all I found was corruption. And I had to come to realize that I had been duped, deceived into serving an idol. God is the main character of the Bible. He's the main character, and he's mentioned thousands of times. The one true God is mentioned thousands of times. Old Testament and New Testament. Now, don't you think it's a bit strange that you can't find a single mention of this three-person God mentioned anywhere in the entire scriptures?
But the thing that really got me in the end and made me absolutely renounce Jesus as the Messiah was realizing suddenly, like a light bulb moment, suddenly realizing all the implications of the belief I held for 42 years, is that God does not kill himself. God does not kill himself. He doesn't have a son who he then kills as an atonement for sin. I suddenly recognized I knew human sacrifice was forbidden in Judaism, but I hadn't connected the death of Jesus. I hadn't seen it as human sacrifice. It hadn't been introduced to me that the person that died on the cross was actually a human being, and that human sacrifice is forbidden in Judaism. I hadn't made the connection. I'm very embarrassed about this because I should have done during the 42 years, but I didn't. And when I realised that it didn't make sense, God killing himself that is supposed to be his son, and raising him from the dead, and he was doing all this outside the temple area through a human sacrifice. Jesus was a human sacrifice, a human being, and he's killing this human being. So the blood, which is physical blood that is shed, that you believe in, will mean that you have your sins forgiven by faith and a place in heaven. And this was all done outside the temple. The priest wouldn't have sacrificed Jesus because, you know why? Because human sacrifice was forbidden in Judaism. And you know who forbade human sacrifice. It was God. It was God himself said, have nothing to do with human sacrifice. And when I suddenly realised that what I'd been believing in was human sacrifice, it was actually human sacrifice, but the belief is what you believe about it. You believe it, that this person is God or God's son, but the actual person dying on there is a human being. So by putting your faith in blood of a human being, you are doing the very thing that God has said don't do, which is have nothing to do with human sacrifice.
Are you unknowingly committing idolatry? For it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. I mean, that right there should tell you something. If your focus is not on God, and God is not the number one priority in your life, that's idolatry. I'm sure everybody's situation is different, but like I said, anything you place above God is idolatry. Simple as that, guys. If you love God and you want to go to heaven, you will put him first.
Because he also said, you shall not make for yourself a graven image. And then he talked about that we should not change and make a picture of God and worship him. But is that not what we are doing today? Maybe we are not physically created our image of stone and gold or wood and worshiping that. But what I see today is that we in our head have created a graven image of God. We have created an idol in our head that we today are worshiping. We are today worshiping the New Testament God, a God of grace, a God of love. There is not like the God who brought them out of Egypt, who are not like the God who killed a lot of people in the Old Testament, who are not like a God who was angry and have wrath like we read there. No, our God, the God we now believe in, is so tolerant, is so loving, is so different. What have you done? You have just broken the first two of the 10 Commandments. You have created your own God in your own imagination.
And to me, it is an abomination now to think God kills God and raises God from the dead. I just find the whole thing abhorrent. So I renounce Jesus within that moment and throughout everything, all the Yeshua signs, crosses, everything. And now I don't believe in him. And I just ask you to reconsider your position. Because in my view, believing in Jesus is worshipping a human being, and it is idolatry.
Duped into idolatry. Duped into serving a man-made God. There's only one God, the living God. Yet men run after this idol manufactured by men, and they refuse to believe it's an idol. I mean, how could you be so deceived? The problem is what the rest of their doctrine says. 3 He's are 1 He. This triune being is 1 He. So you have 3 He's who are 1 He. 3 He's equals 1. 3 equals 1. It's insane.
I refuse, and we should all refuse, to worship any other God. We should all refuse to prioritize anything above God. We should all refuse to have strong desire for something else to where it becomes an obsession and therefore an object of worship. And we should all refuse to bow.
Some of you are bowing in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of whose son is this?
Whose son is that?
I mean, whose son is this fella?
That's right.
This is Baal's son.
Baal's son.
This is the devil's son. This is the son of a liar.
That's right. That's right.
You would say, oh, he called Jesus a liar. That's not Jesus.